The market was always busiest on Sundays. The chatter of early risers, the scent of warm bread and fresh flowers, the occasional cry of a toddler asking for a toy, everything felt ordinary that day. Just another Sunday, just another crowd. Mira had been there 100 times before, and that Sunday was no different, except for the scream she never got to make. 3 years ago, on a chilly spring morning, she had taken her daughter Lena to the Sunday market like always. Lena was 6, smart, funny, and way too curious for her own good. Mira remembered holding her small hand while buying tomatoes. The stall vendor had cracked a joke about picky eaters, and Mira laughed. Just for a moment she let go. Just for a moment she turned her head, and then silence. Lena was gone. The panic that followed ripped her soul in two. She screamed until her throat burned. Police came, witnesses were questioned, surveillance cameras checked, posters printed. Months passed. No sign of Lena, no ransom call, nothing. It was like she vanished into thin air, swallowed whole by the market itself. People said maybe she ran off. Others whispered darker things. Mira heard them all, but she never stopped searching. Never moved houses, never packed away Lena's toys, never gave up. 3 years later, Mira had learned to live around the pain, like a bone that healed wrong. She went through the motions, worked part-time at the school cafeteria, attended therapy once a week, smiled at people when they asked how she was doing, though she never meant it. Then came that Sunday. She wasn't even planning to go, but the power had gone out and her fridge had died overnight. She needed bread, milk, eggs. It was drizzling when she pulled into the market lot. Same market. Same stalls, same walk from the parking space. The bakery stand was new, though. She noticed it right away. Hand-painted sign reading Miller's Crust and Crumb. A young man with curly red hair and freckles worked the counter. He greeted her politely. She picked up a small loaf wrapped in brown paper, still warm. When she got home, she made tea, sat by the window, and tore into the bread with a kitchen knife. That's when she saw it. A piece of paper, baked inside the bread. Her hands trembled as she pulled it out. Still slightly damp, browned at the edges from the oven's heat. There were just 4 words, scrawled in childlike handwriting with a fading blue pen. Mom, help, basement 143. The bread hit the floor. Mira stared at the note like it might vanish, her heart thudding so hard it made her ears ring. She reread it, again and again. Mom, help. Basement 143. She hadn't imagined it. She couldn't have. It was Lena's handwriting, sloppy, wide loops the way she always wrote Mom in all caps. Mira stood there frozen, mouth dry, hands shaking, the world spinning around her. What was this? A prank? A coincidence? Some twisted joke? But in her gut, in the hollow place where her grief lived, she knew. It was her daughter. It had to be. Mira stood in her silent kitchen, the note clenched in her fingers like a lifeline. The kettle behind her screeched, forgotten, boiling into dry air. The loaf of bread lay torn open on the floor, a pile of crumbs spreading like a crime scene. She stared at the paper again. Mom, help, basement 143. Who baked this? Who wrote it? Why now? She grabbed her phone and snapped a photo of the note. She wanted to call the police, she really did, but some gut instinct, the kind she used to get, when Lena had a fever before a thermometer ever showed it, screamed no. She knew what the police would say. There's no proof. Could be a prank. Could be someone trying to mess with you. And even if they believed her, would they care like she did? She had to find out where that loaf had come from. Back at the market in under 20 minutes, Mira rushed to the Miller's Crust and Crumb stall. The red-haired boy looked startled when she approached, breathless and wide-eyed. That bread I bought, where did it come from? She asked, voice shaking. I baked it this morning. All the loaves are handmade, he replied, confused. Where do you bake them? At the bakery. We rent a kitchen space on Ashland and 5th, 143 Ashland, if that's what you're asking. Her world tilted. 143. Her knees nearly gave out. Is there a basement? I mean, yeah, it's an old building. Storage and stuff. Why? Can you take me there, right now? The boy hesitated, clearly caught off guard. Ma'am, is something wrong? Mira didn't care how insane she sounded. She grabbed his arm. Please, I think my daughter might be there. She's been missing for 3 years. His eyes widened. Wait, what? Please, she whispered. That did it. 10 minutes later, Mira followed his dusty blue Toyota through quiet streets. The bakery was located in a narrow brick building, wedged between a laundromat and an old hardware store. Miller's was stenciled onto the glass in simple white lettering. He unlocked the door and stepped inside first, flipping on the lights. The air smelled of flour and yeast and something faintly metallic. This way, he said, walking through the kitchen to a heavy wooden door near the back. It creaked as he opened it. A steep staircase led downward into darkness. She froze at the top step, the air down there stale, as if it hadn't moved in years. The boy handed her a flashlight. I've never really been down here much, just old shelves and storage, far as I know. Mira took a deep breath and descended. Her shoes echoed against cement. The flashlight beam jumped across cobwebbed corners, stacks of flour bags, broken stools. She felt insane, but she couldn't stop, couldn't leave. That's when she saw it, faint on the wall, half hidden behind an old rolling rack. Tiny. Letters scratched into the concrete. Lena was here. Her breath hitched. She ran her fingers over it, definitely carved by a child's hand. Hey, what is this? The boy asked behind her, peering over her shoulder. Get me a crowbar, Mira said, her voice suddenly steady. He blinked. What? There's something behind this wall. She didn't know how she knew, she just did. To his credit, the kid didn't argue. He disappeared upstairs and returned with a crowbar. Together they shoved the rack aside. Mira began chipping at the corner, plaster crumbling like dry snow. That's when the hole appeared. Behind the wall it was a hidden room. She shoved the flashlight through, heart racing. A mattress, a bucket, old coloring books, scratches on the wall, marks counting days, weeks. Mira collapsed to her knees. Sobbing, it was real, she hadn't imagined it. Lena had been here. But the room was empty now. She turned back to the boy, her face wet, streaked with dust and grief. Call the police, she whispered. Now. The police arrived faster than she expected. 2 squad cars, no sirens. Mira sat on the curb outside the bakery, her clothes dust-stained, her hands still shaking. She had barely said a word since the call, clutching the crumpled note in one hand and staring at the front door of the bakery, like her daughter might suddenly walk through it. Inside, officers cordoned off the basement. One of them, a tall, gruff man with tired eyes, took Mira aside. You're saying you found a hidden room in the basement of a bakery, and you think your missing daughter was held there? He repeated, pen hovering over his notepad. I don't think, Mira snapped. I know. He paused. And this note, you found it inside the bread. She nodded and handed it to him. He examined it carefully, then called over another. Officer. They photographed it, sealed it in an evidence bag, and scribbled something into a report. The bakery worker, the red-haired boy named Travis, looked like he was about to pass out. I didn't know, I swear. I just bake. I don't even own. The place, man? Who does? Mira asked sharply. He blinked. Some guy named Greg Miller. He's barely around, I only see him once a week. Sometimes not even that, he just pays me and drops off ingredients. The officer nodded. We'll need his contact, and you'll both need to stay available for questioning. The rest of the day blurred. Crime scene tape, investigators combing through the bakery, measurements taken, dust lifted from surfaces, officers murmuring into radios. They found fingerprints in the room, tiny ones, old ones, but human. They also found something else, an old worn-out pink sandal wedged between 2 floorboards. Mira recognized it immediately. Lena had been wearing them the day she disappeared. That was it. That was proof. The media caught wind by evening. Cameras showed up, news vans circling, the market like vultures. Mother discovers secret basement in bakery, links to missing child, splashed across social media. But Mira didn't care about the noise. All she cared about was where Lena was now. The police promised to track the bakery owner, to investigate the property records, to test the handwriting and DNA. But Mira had waited 3 years. She wasn't about to sit back now. She needed to know more. She needed to move faster. That night, she sat on her bed, sleepless. She opened her laptop, went into forums she hadn't visited in over a year, Missing Persons Underground, Dark Net Watch, the Lost Child Project. One thread stood out. Someone using the handle breadcrumb143 had posted something weird 2 weeks ago. Old places hold secrets. Sometimes a message rises where you'd never expect. If anyone sees this, look in the loaves. It hadn't gotten many replies. The post had been downvoted, called a hoax. But Mira knew better. She messaged the user, Mira143, who are you? I found the note, I got it, I need to find her. No reply. She waited. Minutes turned into hours. Her screen blurred from tears and exhaustion. Then at 3:42 a.m. a new message. Breadcrumb143. You weren't supposed to get it. Not yet. She's not there anymore. But she's close. He moves her when it gets hot. Mira's heart nearly stopped. Mira143. Who is he? Where is she now? Tell me where. Another pause. Breadcrumb143. 143 wasn't a building number. It's a signal. 1 letter, 4 letters, 3 letters, ILY. I love you. That was her to you. Her way to say she's alive. But he's getting nervous. You opened the door. Now you have to follow the crumbs. Mira stared at the screen, her pulse pounding in her ears. Who was this? Someone helping her? Someone playing with her? She typed back fast. Mira143. I'm ready. Tell me what to do. No reply. She sat there until dawn. When the police called later that morning, they said Greg Miller, the bakery owner, hadn't been seen in almost 2 months. The lease on the bakery had been paid through a shell company. His ID was fake, no social media, no known address. Whoever he was, he had vanished, and Mira finally realized. This wasn't just a case of a missing girl. It was something much, much darker. Sleep became optional. Mira moved like a ghost through her days, obsessed, sharp, relentless. Everything else faded. The job, the bills, even her health. All she cared about now was finding Lena. The police tried keeping her in the loop, but it was clear they were drowning in red tape. Too many unknowns. Nothing concrete yet. Still testing the handwriting, they spoke in procedural phrases while Mira moved like someone whose soul was on fire. She couldn't wait, not anymore. The next message from Breadcrumb143 came 2 nights later. Check the alley behind Haver and Pine. There's a dumpster with a black mark on the side. Lift the lid. There's something for you. She didn't hesitate. At midnight, Mira drove across town to the address. The alley was dimly lit, trash bins lined up like silent guards. She spotted it immediately, the only one with a thick black X sprayed across its rusted lid. Hands shaking, she lifted. Inside, beneath piles of garbage bags, was a plain manila envelope. She yanked it out, heart slamming against her ribs. Inside were photographs printed on cheap paper, grainy but clear enough to freeze her blood. A little girl in a concrete room. She was older, pale, too thin. But her face, those eyes, Mira, would know them anywhere. Lena, alive. In one photo she held a stuffed bear. In another she looked directly at the camera, eyes filled with something that wasn't fear, but something worse. Resignation. The last photo had a note scribbled. On the back, he feeds us bread. We're not the only ones. Mira gasped. Us. There were more kids. She pressed the photos to her chest and wept there, in the rank stink of alley trash and old oil. Then she stood. Enough crying, enough waiting. Whoever he was, still out there, still baking loaves, still playing with lives. She needed help, but not the kind that wore a badge. She turned to an old friend, the only person who hadn't vanished after Lena's disappearance, Max. Max had been a private investigator once, until a messy lawsuit ended his license. He drank too much, lived above a pawn shop, and smelled, like smoke and anger. But he was the best tracker Mira had ever known. She showed him the photos, the note, the crowbar-scratched wall. She even told him about breadcrumb 143. Max didn't speak for a full minute. Then he lit a cigarette and nodded. "Looks like someone's been hiding in plain sight," he said, "and someone's been helping from the shadows." He opened his laptop, fingers moving with a speed that surprised her. "Let's talk about Greg Miller." Max dug into layers the cops hadn't touched. Burner phones, bounce checks, a van registered to a dead woman in Kansas that had been spotted by traffic cams near the bakery 4 times in the last 6 months. "Whoever he is, he's smart," Max muttered. "Doesn't stay long. Keeps things clean. No digital footprints. But he made a mistake once." He showed her a grainy still from a security cam outside a gas station, time-stamped 6 weeks ago, a man loading something into a van. You could barely see his face. But behind, him just visible through the van's cracked door. A child. "Lena?" Mira's gut twisted. Max leaned back. "I know a guy. He works dark web forums. He can trace breadcrumb 143. Might cost some favors." "I don't care," Mira said. "Whatever it takes." Over the next few days, they pieced together what they could. Breadcrumb 143's account was encrypted and bounced through several proxy servers, but Max's contact managed to trace the original IP to a shipping warehouse that had burned down 2 years ago. "Smoke and mirrors," Max said. "Whoever this person is, they're hiding for a reason, but they're watching close." Later that night, Mira got a package, no return address, just sitting on her doorstep when she got home. Inside was another loaf of bread, and another note, this time carved into a thin strip of metal. "The baker has many ovens. Follow the mold." Mira had no idea what that meant, but Max did. Bread mold carries strain signatures. Bakeries have bacteria fingerprints, basically. It's subtle, but real food nerds can trace it. They found a microbiologist who agreed to test the mold pattern for a steep price. A few days later, they got the results. Only one bakery in the state had that unique mold signature baked into the crust, a small one, in a town called Ravenport, population 1,300. Max stared at the map. It's off the highway, middle of nowhere, not even listed on Google Maps unless you zoom in hard. Mira didn't wait. She packed a bag, printed out the photos, the notes, every file she had. This wasn't just a trip, it was a hunt. And she was going to bring her daughter home, or burn the whole damn town down trying. Ravenport was the kind of town that time forgot. No billboards, no traffic lights, just dusty roads, crooked porches, and long stares from people who didn't. Like strangers. The bakery was right at the edge near a long-abandoned train station. No sign, no display windows. Just a plain brick building with peeling paint and a rusted doorbell. The scent of yeast floated in the air, faint but familiar, a soft kind of rot. Mira parked her car down the road, keeping a low profile. She and Max had agreed. No confrontation yet. First, they'd observe. They booked a room at the only motel in town, a rundown place with buzzing fluorescent lights and beds that smelled faintly of mildew. Max set up his surveillance gear by the window. Long lens camera, audio recorder, a scanner for radio frequencies. That night, they watched. At 2:43 a.m., a figure appeared. A tall man, wiry with a long coat and gloves, odd for spring. He unlocked the bakery door, stepped inside, and disappeared. "Greg Miller," Mira whispered. "Has to be," Max replied, snapping pictures silently. Nobody else has been near that place all day. By morning, the bakery was open. Barely. A tiny open sign flickered in the dusty window. No customers. Just one woman in a headscarf leaving with a paper bag. Mira decided to go in. Max insisted on staying close, armed, just in case. She pushed open the door, the bell overhead giving a dull ding. The air inside was thick, warm, almost too warm. Loaves of bread lined wooden racks. All identical. All perfectly shaped. Not a crumb out of place. Behind the counter stood the man from the night before. Tall, narrow face. Pale blue eyes that didn't blink enough. "Good morning," he said, voice calm and almost melodic. "First, time here?" She nodded slowly, heart thumping. "Just passing through. Place smells nice." "Everything's fresh," he said, "baked with love." Mira forced a smile. "I'll take one loaf." That one. She pointed at the closest. He wrapped it carefully, too carefully, and handed it over. As she handed him cash, she looked. He passed him, through the doorway behind the counter, a staircase, going down. Her blood turned cold. She thanked him, took the bread, and left without looking back. Outside, she peeled off the wrapper and tore into the loaf. Empty. No note. No surprise, but she recognized the crust's color, the way it cracked. Same kind, same mold signature. She walked quickly back to the motel and slammed the door behind her. "It's him," she said. "It's the baker." Max was already packing his gear. "Then tonight, we find out what's under that staircase." They returned just after midnight. The town was dead quiet. Max picked the back lock, years of experience making quick work of it. They slipped in, flashlights low, hearts pounding. The main room looked the same. Warm ovens, lined shelves, rows of identical loaves cooling in trays. Then they crept toward the back. The staircase was narrower than it looked, steep old wood creaking under every step. The basement was colder, bigger than expected, and wrong. It wasn't just a storage room, it was a processing room. Steel counters, plastic bins, labels, crates stacked in rows. Children's clothes, torn and stained, stuffed in a black garbage bag. Mira bit back a sob as she opened one bin. Coloring, books, crayons, a small pink sock. She nearly collapsed. Max pulled her back. "Listen." Footsteps upstairs. Heavy, slow, coming closer. They killed the flashlights, hid behind one of the counters. The basement door opened. Light spilled. Shanantha Baker stepped inside carrying a crate. He moved calmly, methodically, set the crate down, walked to the corner and pulled a lever. A portion of the floor began to shift. Mira froze as a hidden hatch opened, revealing stairs leading even deeper underground. "What the hell is this?" Max whispered. The baker descended, humming softly to himself. Once he was out of sight, Mira and Max moved. Fast, quiet. They followed him. The tunnel was narrow, lit by hanging bulbs, dirt walls, pipes dripping from the ceiling. The air smelled like mold, old water, and something else. Something foul. Then they heard it. A soft noise. Not footsteps. A sob. Mira ran ahead before Max could stop her. At the end of the tunnel they found it. A room, small, caged, and inside, huddled against the corner, was a girl. Thin, dirty, hair matted. She turned as the light hit her face, and Mira stopped breathing. "Lena! Lena!" The name cracked in Mira's throat like glass. The girl flinched at first, then slowly raised her head. Big, hollow eyes met hers. It was her. Pale, thin, older, but unmistakable. Her daughter. "Mum?" she whispered, her voice like sandpaper. Mira ran to the cage, gripping the bars. "It's me, baby, it's me. I found you, I found you." Lena didn't cry, she didn't move. She just stared, as if unsure if her mother was real or just another hallucination in the dark. Max was already at the lock, trying to jimmy it open with a tool from his bag. "This wasn't meant to hold forever. I can get it. Give me a second." Mira pressed her hand through the bars, brushing her daughter's arm. It felt like bone-wrapped. "In paper." "Are there others?" Mira asked softly. Lena nodded. "He moved them last week. Said new place. Said I was too noisy." Mira's stomach churned. "Where did he take them?" Lena shook her head. "He doesn't say. He just bakes." Max snapped the lock open and pulled the door wide. Mira knelt and wrapped her arms around her daughter for the first time in 3 years. The hug was stiff at first. Lena had forgotten softness, but slowly, slowly she leaned into it. "Time to go," Max whispered. "Now." They helped Lena to her feet. Her legs trembled but held. As they turned to leave, a loud click echoed behind them. Mira froze. The baker stood at the tunnel's entrance, a shotgun resting across his arms. "I was hoping it wouldn't be you," he said, voice still calm, still soft. "But I had a feeling." Mira stepped in front of Lena. "You took her. You kept her. For 3 years. You sick bastard. I saved her, he said. You... People don't understand what's out there, what they're born into. I gave her order, clean food, a place where everything had purpose. You caged her, Max growled. You starved children. The baker tilted his head. And yet she's alive, isn't she? And now you've ruined it, all of it. He raised the shotgun. Max lunged. The blast roared through the tunnel, deafening. Mira screamed. Max tackled the baker, both of them crashing to the ground. The gun skidded across the floor. Mira kicked it away, then grabbed Lena and dragged her back through the tunnel, heart slamming against her ribs. Behind her, Max and the baker fought, fists, grunts. Metal clanged against concrete. Go, Max shouted. Take her and go. Mira hesitated, torn in half. Go. She pulled Lena through the tunnel, up the hatch stairs, through the bakery's basement. She kicked the door open and burst into the night air. The stars blurred through her tears. They ran, into the road, into the motel parking lot. She drove like a woman possessed. 20 minutes later, blue lights lit the rearview mirror. A patrol car. Mira pulled over, jumped out, waving her arms. She's here. I found her. Please, help him. More cars came. Officers ran back to the bakery. Mira wrapped Lena in a blanket the paramedics gave her. They tried to take her to a hospital, but Mira refused to let go. She held her daughter all the way to the ER. And finally, the nightmare felt like it was ending. But not for long. The next morning she asked the nurse about Max. The nurse looked confused, checked the clipboard. No one by that name was admitted last night. She asked the police. They checked their reports. No body found, no man arrested, no ID recovered from the bakery. Mira's blood ran cold. She asked about the baker. He escaped, the detective said grimly. Disappeared before our units. Arrived, left behind one boot and blood, but no trace since. Lena was safe, but the man who took her, still out there, somewhere. The hospital released Lena after a full exam. Malnourished, minor injuries, old scars. Psychologists said recovery would take time, long time. But she was lucid. She remembered everything. The cage, the rooms, the children, the rules. No crying, no questions, no names. Mira rented a small cabin outside the city, away from cameras, away from noise. She needed time to think, and more importantly, she needed Lena to feel safe. They barely slept. Every creak of the floor sent Lena hiding under tables. Mira never left her side, but something gnawed at her. The bakery, the message, the user breadcrumb 143, the mold, the code, the tunnels. It had all been too connected, too orchestrated. Max was gone, vanished. No calls, no notes, no ID in the system. Mira called his burner phone. Disconnected, checked his apartment, cleaned out. It was like he'd never existed. She didn't want to believe what her mind whispered in the quiet hours. What if Max wasn't helping you? What if he was managing? 2 days after the escape, Mira got another package, no postmark, no return address, just a white box on her porch. Inside, another loaf of bread and another note, but this time it wasn't written by a child, typed, cut from a printer, precise. You've stirred the flour, but the ovens still burn. This wasn't about her. It was about you. Welcome to the recipe. There was something else inside, a birth certificate, hers. Mira Ellen Shaw, born May 12th, 1989. But something was off. She never remembered seeing her original. This one had an unfamiliar seal at the bottom. Program Jur B 143. Subject potential high. Her hands shook. She flipped the certificate over. 3 letters stamped in red ink, SAVE. She searched it online. No results. She called old state offices. Nobody recognized the stamp. She asked Lena, had anyone ever mentioned that word? Save? Lena nodded slowly. The tall man. He said you were special. That he watched you before I was even born. Said they wanted to see what your kind would do. Mira's blood ran cold. My kind? Lena shrugged. Mother's. The next night, Mira couldn't sleep. She sat alone in the cabin's kitchen, all the documents spread before her. She traced every clue, every note, every message. She mapped the bakeries, the children, the timelines. And then she saw it, a pattern. Every missing child connected to a mother who had reported dreams, paranoia, hallucinations, or extreme maternal protectiveness. Every mother had been dismissed as unstable. Every child disappeared on a Sunday. She opened the Breadcrumb 143 forum again. She hadn't checked the thread in days. There was a new post, just 5 words. They always start with bread. And under it, a photo of Mira, standing in the market, the day Lena vanished. But the photo wasn't taken by her. It was taken of her. Someone had been watching all along. She scrolled to the comments, all anonymous, but one stuck out. B143 is activated. Test complete. Awaiting next phase. Mira pushed the laptop away like it was on fire. Her throat closed. Her hands went numb. She looked toward the bedroom, where Lena slept, and finally asked herself the question she'd been too afraid to face. Was Lena taken or delivered? The air inside the cabin felt heavier with every hour. Mira didn't tell Lena about the new message. Not yet. She needed time to think, to plan, to stop the spinning inside her head. But Lena, she already knew. She walked into the kitchen that morning, her face calm in that eerie way trauma makes permanent. She sat across from her mother and spoke quietly. "They were watching you." Mira looked up, startled. "You remember more?" "I always remembered," Lena said softly. "I just didn't want you to." "Why?" "Because I thought it would break you." Mira's heart cracked open. "You're my daughter. You think I wouldn't survive the truth?" Lena nodded slowly. "You already didn't. That's why they picked you." Mira's blood ran cold. That night, Mira did something desperate. She replied to the Breadcrumb 143 post, publicly. "You got what you wanted. Come finish it." It was a trap, she knew it, but sometimes traps catch monsters. The next night, headlights appeared on the winding road to the cabin, a black SUV, no plates. It parked without turning off the engine. Mira stood in the doorway, with a kitchen knife in her hand. A man stepped out, not the baker, someone older, wearing a long coat and black gloves. "Ms. Shaw," he said with a casual smile, "you're harder to break than we expected." She didn't move. "Where is he?" "The one who took her." "He's finished. He broke protocol, got emotional." The man stepped closer. "But we've been watching since before that. Long before Lena." "What do you want?" He tilted his head. "We wanted to see how far a mother would go. How deep love can be pushed before it turns into something else. Survival, obsession, violence. You took children to prove a point. To perfect an idea," he said. "Mothers like you, selected, bred, and pushed into trauma. You were the subject, she was the control, and now we have the data." He smiled wider. "You passed, by the way." Mira's hand tightened on the knife. "Is that why you're here, to congratulate me?" "No," he said, taking out a syringe from his coat pocket. "I'm here to erase the evidence." He lunged. The knife met his throat first. It wasn't even a struggle. He gurgled, eyes wide, blood soaking his shirt as he crumpled to the dirt. Mira stood over him, panting. No tears, just fury. Behind her, Lena appeared, holding a flashlight like a club. Was he the last one? "I don't know," Mira whispered, "but we're not running anymore." They burned the car, buried the body, smashed the phone. Then they vanished. Weeks passed, then months. News broke about child trafficking rings across 3 states tied to baking supply front companies. Anonymous tips flooded hotlines. Underground forums collapsed. But Mira and Lena were never named. No interviews, no testimony. They stayed ghosts. A year later, in a small town halfway across the country, a new bakery opened. Quiet, humble, handmade signs. Owned by a woman with haunted eyes and a daughter who never spoke in public. They made one kind of bread only. Simple loaves, no fillings. But inside one loaf every week, they left something. A note. Always the same 4 words. "You are not alone." And they waited. because they knew there were more cages out there and more mothers coming,